I had actually heard that J. Reuben Clark quote, if we have the truth, it can't be harmed by investigation. If we have not the truth, it ought to be harmed. Yeah, it was, turns out it was harmed by investigation.
Hey, what's up guys? It's ex-mormon with My Spiritual Life, and I got my husband Jared helping me out today, and today we are giving you the full backstory as to why we left the church from the very beginning to the end to where we are right now. So buckle up! Maybe play this video on double speed. Here we go. Jared, do you want to start just a little bit of family background with the church?
I was hella Mormon.
How Mormon?
Hecka Mormon, I guess. My dad's family talked to the missionaries and converted when he was like 9, so he's kind of a convert, I guess.
Right.
My mom's had been generations and generations. Her whole family's pretty inactive. My mom was... It's still like a point of pride to me to remember the stories of my mom as a little girl on her own, getting dressed and ready for church, going over to the neighbors and asking them for a ride every Sunday. So,
wow.
I think that's pretty cool of a little kid to put that much effort into something.
Yeah.
But I was Mormon. I was probably the Mormonist of my family.
You mean of your siblings, or?
Yeah. My siblings, they're all in it, and they're all, they go and they have callings, and
right.
They've been on missions and stuff, but I was very outgoing about it, I would bear my testimony every single fast Sunday.
When you were how old?
In high school.
Oh man, devotion.
Yeah, I was big into, I liked seminary. I didn't have early morning seminary.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that might have changed your opinion.
It probably would have. No, I'm not that fickle. So I guess I always knew I was supposed to go on a mission. There was almost no part of me that wanted to.
Really?
Yeah, it did not sound fun.
Right.
And
even though you were really Mormon, it didn't sound fun?
Oh no, it sounded awful. And it was pretty awful. It wasn't fun. It was... yeah, not a good time. But, maybe I have my mission to thank for not being Mormon anymore.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, for me, my wife, or for my son. No, okay, that's fine.
I mean, that's kind of incidental. It's like, yeah, if I wasn't on my mission, it's not like my mission got me my wife. It's just that I happened to meet you because my mission is gets as much credit for me meeting you and having my son as like me waking up an hour late for school one day. It's a butterfly effect. Like,
of course.
I'm not going to give him credit for this. I was only good at struggling in secret, right? I didn't let people know when I was having a hard time with anything at all. So I had to sort of appear on the outside. Like, I didn't want to look like a hypocrite because I was very churchy. I was doing all these things. I believed in it. I never touched coffee or alcohol or anything like that. So I wanted to...
Jensen would be proud.
Yeah. I wanted to be a practice what you preach kind of guy. There's a lot of pressure to go on a mission. And I was like, well, I guess I'm doomed to going on a mission. I went to the Porto Alegre South mission in Brazil. Mm. It's the southernmost mission in Brazil.
Gauchos.
Yeah, with the gauchos. There's obviously, you can look back on your life and trace a lot of places where you kind of started to question just a little bit. And one of the earliest ones, I think I've already talked about on the channel, was when they were asking us our political views as a school. Like, we were having to take these tests and just for informational purposes.
In high school.
Yeah, in high school. And it was anonymous, and one of the questions was, should gay marriage be legal? And, in my head, I bought that it was a sin up to that point, but I was like, I mean, yeah, it's a sin, but, like, so is coffee, and I don't think coffee should be illegal, so...
Why?
Maybe it should be legal, and that was sort of a moment of, I don't know about all this, but
yeah,
you just shove it back and
put it on the shelf.
Keep going on, go to seminary, do all that crap. But I also remember on my mission having several conversations with my companions about things that troubled me. Now, a mission is a different world. It's completely different from being a regular everyday Mormon.
Yeah, that's true. Because you're much more isolated and you're much more ingrained in the doctrine all the time.
Yeah, people can argue whether or not the Mormon Church is a cult, and I tend to err on the side of saying, hey, it's not a cult. It's kind of a controlling religion, but I won't call it a cult, I guess. But a mission is a cult. It's like straight up, they do everything they can. It sounds dystopian almost when you really think about it. They strip you of your individuality, of your identity. Like, you're not supposed to use first names at all. A lot of my companions wouldn't even tell people their first names if they asked. They'd be like, what's your name? Like, Elder Smith. Like, okay, yeah, I see that, but what's like your real name? Elder Smith. What's your first name? Elder. And then they go over to me and be like, what's your name? I say, it's Jared. And my companion would always be like I just wasn't playing his game or whatever, and he's always mad. But I remember my mission president, and this happened a couple times, he gave us this big riling speech. It was supposed to be very, a bit of a pep talk, where he talked about Adam and Eve after they had left or been kicked out of the garden. Some angels came to Adam while he was sacrificing a goat and said, why are you doing that? And he said, I know not, save the Lord hath commanded it. And my mission president used that and applied it to us and said, so if Adam, the father of everything, didn't have to ask why, well, how come you guys have to ask why?
Oh. Dang.
And that was supposed to be inspiring, and it was to a lot of missionaries, because you're so, and I'll use the term brainwashed, because you're brainwashed on a mission. It's straight up.
How did you take it, though?
Well, I didn't like it. I was kind of a rebel as a missionary, and I didn't fit in the missionary mold. I didn't pretend to like my mission. When I got home, I didn't pretend that, oh man, I wish I was back out there on my mission. Like, no. Until I had my son and got married, coming home for my mission was the best day of my life. But I remember my companion was trying to discuss it with me, like, wow, yeah, that's what I needed to hear today. It was a trial of faith. I need to have more faith.
Yeah.
And ask why less. And I was like, what's wrong with asking why?
Yeah.
Especially in Mormonism, because there's sort of this different idea of what a God is. Because God is not just the creator of everything. It's an achievement that you can attain as a person. And so you would want to know the reasons behind everything. Yeah. If your end goal is to be God.
Yeah. That's a good point.
So it doesn't make sense to me. And plus, the amount of... I think the most beautiful thing about Mormon doctrine is their emphasis on free will, free agency. Just having the ability to choose unimpeded. And obviously they believe there are consequences to those choices, but doctrinally, everything hinges on free agency. That's the whole reason behind everything. If you teach somebody about this free agency, and they latch onto it like I did. I dug into that whole free agency ideal, and if you teach somebody that, I don't know how you could possibly be surprised if they have like an inquisitive mind.
Right.
And they want to ask questions. They want to understand things. We weren't allowed to drink Coke on our mission. And
Coca-Cola.
Yeah. And I would ask why. And they would give the dumbest unsatisfactory reasons. Well, people think it's against the rules and we want to avoid the appearance of evil. And I actually laughed at that and got some dirty looks. Because I thought, I took it as a joke at first because that sounded so absurd to me.
What's the appearance of evil if Coke is allowed?
Well,
does it look like rum?
No, they said it was... They're like, there's a lot of people that think that missionaries can't drink Coke. So when they see missionaries drinking Coke, they think you're disobeying a rule.
Of the evil that's not actually evil.
Yeah. So it basically,
got it.
The general population of that area probably could have dictated a lot of rules.
Oh, man, that's bad.
Well, they think it's bad when they think missionaries aren't allowed to wear shoes, so we're just going to not wear shoes anymore
to avoid the appearance of evil. Oh, man.
So I had that discussion with my companion about what's wrong with asking why, and he was like getting terrified because he thought I was gonna leave or something. Like, oh, he's questioning, he's faithless or whatever, and because I don't know, there's sort of a deification of mission leaders within the mission, and if you question them, you're questioning God.
It's almost like leadership is God. So you served your mission, then you came back to your hometown, Idaho, and then that would put us around, you got back 2012 in November, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was born in St. Louis. I was the second oldest of 6 kids, and as you can guess from how many kids were in my family, both my parents were Mormon. My dad was actually a convert in his early 20s. He didn't go on a mission, but he converted. And then he met my mom at Singles Ward. They got married. They banged out a bunch of kids. And, so we were raised very Mormon. My mom was pretty strict on the rules in a lot of aspects. And, wouldn't let us watch, like, Disney sitcoms and things like that. Was, I don't know, wanted to keep the house having the spirit and everything. And
Morgan was raised Jehovah's Witness.
No, thank goodness, no. I loved being Mormon growing up. Like, I loved church stuff. I mean, I'd get bored, but I loved being Mormon. Does that make sense? Like, I would get bored during Sunday school or whatever and want to talk with my little friends and whatever, but I loved most everything about the religion. I loved baptisms. I loved talking to my friends about religion. And I liked the specialness of being Mormon because I was in St. Louis, so it was actually very rare. Like, people who are born and raised in Idaho and Utah, they don't understand that, like, in Missouri and places where Mormonism isn't very common, people don't even know what a Mormon is. The only thing that they might know about Mormons is polygamy. So I would get kids on the school bus like, how many wives does your dad have? And I'd be like, honestly, I've lost count. So, like, really, people didn't know what Mormons were. Like, I remember one time going to my friend's house, and I was, like, 16 or 17 at the time, and her sister was watching TV when we walked in, and her sister looked at me and looked at the TV and was like, oh, do you want me to turn this off? And I was like, why? She was like, you're Mormon, right? I was like, I'm not Amish, if that's what you're asking. Like, I can watch TV. Anyway, so but anyway, aside from the weird little moments like that, I liked how I kind of stood out at school. Like, I was like, Morgan the Mormon. That's what my friends actually all called me. They actually called me Mormon sometimes instead of Morgan. Actually, most of the time. Especially like my two best friends. Say, hey, Mormon! Yeah? So coming to BYU, Idaho later was a shock because everyone was Mormon. And it was like, oh, I'm not special anymore.
Yeah, Morgan just likes being unique. That's the whole reason she left the church.
I know. I left because we came here to Idaho. If we go back to Missouri, I'll go back to being Mormon. So anyway, I loved being Mormon. I loved everything about church. I actually invited friends over to talk to the missionaries all the time. I remember sitting down and crying with the missionaries about, like, experiences, like, and, yeah, I just loved it. Like, when I graduated high school, I gave all my teachers a Book of Mormon. I was, like, very gung-ho on the religion, which is why I think people on this channel don't understand, like, what a big deal it is that I am the way I am now, because it was very different. So, yeah, I loved it. I didn't have any problems. Like, I had little things that bothered me. Like, probably one of my biggest incidents in high school was when I was probably, like, 16, I had, like, one of my best friends, and she was gay, and she was, like, crying to me about it because she was like, I don't want to be gay, but I am, and I don't want to go to hell, and it was just, like, the most heart-wrenching moment, and I was just like, there is no way that, like, the loving God I believe in would send you to hell. Like, I just don't, that does not compute. And so that was something I kind of was like, well, don't really understand it, but I'm, like, trusting that, you know, God has a reason for everything, so just kind of setting that aside. And I was really nice to all my friends in high school, and I was pretty popular in a sense. Like, I had a lot of friends and I got along with a lot of people, and I was, like, voted nicest person, which I attribute to the Mormonism, because everyone just viewed me as, like, this very, like, goody two shoes kind of straight A geek.
It was definitely
friendly.
the Mormonism, because you're a really mean person.
I am very mean-spirited at heart. So anyway, so that kind of brings you up to speed. So then my parents actually got divorced when I was 18, and at the same time that they told us they were getting divorced, my dad's like, also, I'm leaving the church. And I was like, I didn't know what to be more upset about. Like, that's how, like, much it crushed my soul, which, you know, everything's worked out for the best. Like, my parents are both doing a lot better now, and I'm very happy about that. But at the time, it was, like, the worst thing that had ever happened. And especially with the Mormon upbringing, it's like, families can be together forever. And then it's like, just kidding. And I was like, this is BS. I was very upset. That was really hard. And then right after that, I had to go to college. And I went to BYU, Idaho. Booyah. So I graduated high school in 2012. And then I didn't come to BYU, Idaho till January of 2013. And that's when you started your first semester of BYU, Idaho as well, because your mom signed you up.
Yep.
Way to go, Mom. Love you. We will have to do a separate video on how we met, because it's a really funny story, but I want to, like, get to the juicy details of that. So, gonna stick back to talking about kind of our more spiritual journey. So we met through being at school together, and then we met in January. We got engaged in June, and then we got married. I think. Well, the official engagement was in June, but we pretty much were like, yeah, we're going to get married in, like, April. Yeah. And then we got married in August. So we had met in January, got married in August. Mm-hmm. Very Mormon thing to do. Do not recommend. It worked out for me. It worked out so well for me. I'm so glad. But it doesn't always work out that well. We were lucky that we were compatible, because we did not know that at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't have time to really get to know each other. So I was lucky that she's not weird or something like that.
Oh, God. If he hasn't figured out now, he'll never know. So then we got married, and I'm going to let you kind of talk a little bit about your journey, because I was still in for years after he left. So take it away, Mr. Jared.
Yeah. I had a friend, he was like my best friend, who was going to go on a mission when I did, and then had some health problems, and it kept getting pushed back and stuff, and eventually he left the church. He left while I was on my mission, and he didn't tell me about it on my mission, but when I got back, we were both night owls, so we just went to McDonald's, which is the only thing open, and we stayed there talking till like 5 a.m.
Oh,
he told me, and I talked to him about it recently. He said he was pretty nervous to bring it up. He was like,
"Oh, I bet."
He was like, I just so you know, I don't really consider myself Mormon anymore. And I was like, oh, okay, why not? And he's like, I don't see the need for like a prophet. He kind of explained his whole reason for leaving. I was like, okay. But he seemed to be doing a lot better than he had before ever. So that was
better. Like how?
Like. Emotionally better. Like he was.
Okay.
When I left, he was having a tough time. Like he was just really depressed and stuff like that. And then when I came back, he was in a much better place. And so I was like, you know what?
If he's in a better
I'll
place.
be Mormon. You don't have to be. We're good. I was not a good missionary.
This is not normal Mormon attitude. It's really not. You've never had normal Mormon attitude, I feel like.
Yeah, probably. I was terrible as a salesman. Like if somebody doesn't want a thing, I'm like, okay, that's cool. Like we'd knock on a door or we'd
It's good. It's just not what they want from you as a missionary.
Yeah, I mean, there's that whole talk that Elder Holland gives called "Be Devastated," and it's exactly for when you have an investigator that's been investigating for a while, and then they sort of drop you. You're supposed to be devastated and to emotionally manipulate them into continuing, basically. So I wasn't good at being devastated. I just didn't care that much. We'd have an investigator drop us and be like, okay, well, let us know. You got our number. Let us know if you change your mind. And my companion's like, you're supposed to be devastated. And I was like, look, anyone who tells me to be devastated can
That is not what you said.
I didn't say that. No. That's what I should have said.
Oh my God. So, talking to your best friend.
He kind of just left it at that, and we kept hanging out and stuff, obviously.
It didn't bother you at all?
I don't remember it bothering me at all.
Okay.
I probably thought it was just a phase or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds more Mormon.
Yeah. So he'll come back or whatever. I didn't think it was a big deal. And eventually, after we got married,
not
really
you and
quickly,
the best friend.
Yeah.
You and me.
Yeah. That was a short-lived marriage. I don't think it was legal at the time either, so I don't know how we did it. Shortly after we got married, I was hanging out with this friend, and I was actually curious because I had actually heard that J. Reuben Clark quote, if we have the truth, it can't be harmed by investigation. If we have not the truth, it ought to be harmed.
Yes.
I heard that on my mission, and I thought that was the coolest quote ever.
Right.
Because it just, pumped me up. I was like, yeah, I'm so confident that this is true that, of course, what?
Nothing could harm it.
Yeah, no investigation is gonna... I'm not worried that the Earth is flat, so no amount of investigating flat Earth is gonna convince me, and so...
Yeah. Boy, were you in for a shock.
Yeah, it was... turns out it was harmed by investigation.
Oh, gosh.
So I asked him, because I wasn't worried about anti-Mormon material. That didn't freak me out. Right. I was like, so what made you leave the church? And he told me about a lot of information that he learned, and he told me about the gospel topic essays, which had just come out.
Right.
And he told me about...
Yeah, that was 2013.
Yeah, he told me about the CES letter and Fair Mormon. And I didn't read the CES letter at first because he told me that's... He was really fair. He was like, this one was written by a guy who is no longer in the church. If you want church materials, go to the gospel topics essays and go to Fair Mormon.
Mm-hmm. And can you just briefly explain what those are for people who don't know?
The gospel topic essays are just the church released in 2013, and they've released more since then. A few essays on their website about some more difficult to swallow topics like polygamy and race in the priesthood and all that stuff.
And it wasn't like announced when these were put on the website. It was like under the radar. They put them there as like I think kind of like as a liability thing. Like you guys hid this from me. No, it's on the website.
Yeah, it seemed a little. They didn't ever announce it, so
right?
It was,
and
it was hard to find.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Fair Mormon it's not ran by the church, but it's ran by faithful members of the church.
Yes.
Apologists, basically. It is a one-stop shop for testimony breaking, I think.
For self-destroying.
I don't... I think they must be trolls or something, because they have all this information.
Yeah.
And they have like, here's all the difficult topics. They have a very well put together website, and it'll be like, polygamy, click on that. Oh, God.
But the goal of the website is they take these difficult topics and they come up with faithful answers to the questions.
Yeah.
But the problem is a lot of people have experienced that they actually learn more sometimes that they didn't know from the website instead of just getting questions answered. Anyway, so he told you about those resources.
Yeah, so I went home and looked them up. And because obviously polygamy had always been very troubling to me. I didn't like that. And part of what I didn't like about it was that at the time it was supposed to be a commandment, right? It wasn't just like, if you want to marry more women, you can, which I still wouldn't have loved.
Yeah.
But it was a strict commandment. And you were less faithful if you didn't obey that commandment. You can't not obey. And it's a commandment that affects you forever.
Yeah.
You're now not with just one person. Since it was a commandment, that means that it could be again. And that's a thought experiment that missionaries like to play around with a lot. They're like, what if polygamy came back? And I was like, well, I wouldn't do it. And they're going around in a circle, talking about, well, man, I guess I'd have to do it, gotta be faithful. And then there's always the one weird dude that's like, I love it.
Winner.
Yeah. And they asked me, I was like, oh, I just wouldn't do it. And they're like, yeah, but what if it was like a commandment? I'd be like, I still wouldn't do it. And he's like, what if the prophet told you to directly? I was like, I wouldn't do it. And this was on my mission, and I had a vile distaste for polygamy, and especially being commanded to do it. And they're like, well, if you don't do it, then you won't go to the celestial kingdom. Your wife can still go, but she has to get married to someone else. So she might just marry someone else and go be in the celestial kingdom. So why not just take on another wife so you can at least still have your first wife in the celestial kingdom? I was like, I understand your logic, but that's not what commitment is to me, Damn romantic thought. Okay, I told them, I was like, well, she can spend the rest of eternity knowing I cared about her more than salvation.
Whoa!
And they were like, that's stupid.
Oh, it's not stupid.
Yeah, but I get where they're coming from.
Yeah.
Under that framework.
Well, you have so much loyalty, and devotion, and I feel like polygamy was just like crapping on that in your mind.
Yeah, and I mean, consenting adults do whatever you want, but the idea that it could be commanded again, I didn't like that.
Yeah.
And so that was the thing I was going to look into. I read the gospel topic essay on polygamy, Joseph Smith's polygamy particularly, because I didn't know he was a polygamist until I was on my mission.
I didn't either. I've heard they're teaching that more in seminary now, but I was not taught that. I thought it was just Brigham Young.
Mm-hmm. There's that infamous line where it explains his youngest wife, Helen Mar Kimball, who was, quote, who married him, quote, several months prior to her 15th birthday. Right. Oh, okay. So she was 14, but only kind of 14.
Okay.
As if I was oh, well, she's basically a 15-year-old, which is fine. And the part that really messed with me from the gospel topic essays was not so much the polygamy, which did mess with me.
Right.
Not even so much that she was really young, which really messed with me. But that he said an angel with a drawn sword was sent to him and threatened him, basically. That he had to take on extra wives or face destruction. And when I read that, I was like, you guys really instilled this sense of value in personal freedom above all else, right?
Yeah, free will.
Yeah. Because really, if you think about it, the most important aspect of Mormon doctrine is freedom of choice. That was the entire reason for the war in heaven. Satan's plan was, I'll save everyone, but they won't have freedom of choice. Jesus is going to save a lot less people, but grant everyone freedom of choice. So an entire war was fought over that, which is crazy to me. And the thought that this granting freedom of choice is more valuable than the amount of celestial casualties that you would have by granting them freedom of choice, that it must be massively important. Yeah. It must be the most important thing. It's the whole reason Jesus died. It's the whole reason he was the savior within Mormonism, right? He died so that you could have freedom of choice. He was willing to, this is supposed to be the Most High God, descending into just utter pain and humiliation.
Right.
To grant you freedom of choice. And that was, back when I believed it, I thought that was a beautiful doctrine, a beautiful sentiment.
Of course.
And so to think that same God would say, well, you gotta marry this 14-year-old or I'm gonna kill yous. Like that. And see, the thing is, when you bring that to the attention of an apologist, they'll say, well, he still had his freedom of choice.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, he didn't take the freedom of choice out of Joseph's brain and then force him to, walk this certain way.
Right.
But at the very least, you've got to admit that that's spitting in the face of that ideal that Jesus supposedly died for. It's a massive insult to free choice to be like, you still have your free choice, but I'm going to kill you. You still have your free choice, but you can only choose between being killed or marrying a 14-year-old.
That doesn't seem like really good options. So then what did you think when you read that?
That was the moment I was like, it's just not true.
You didn't think maybe Joe Smith was like maybe this was written down wrong or something, or maybe he was a flawed prophet or nothing like that?
Well, either, and this bit of a dichotomy, I guess, but I felt like it was either this did happen, God really sent this angel with a drawn sword and for some reason didn't care about free will anymore, which would then mean that I don't like this guy and what he stands for.
I'm not a fan.
Not a fan of that God fella. Or, more logical explanation, Joseph probably lied about it, embellished it. And I know some people who can look at that and say, well, he's just a really flawed man. And well, if he lied about this enormous thing to marry a child, why would I trust him with anything else?
Right.
Let alone the way I'm going to live my entire life.
Yeah.
So it was very quickly, right then, I was just like, oh, I guess I don't believe it.
So then what started going through your head? You're you read this and you're like, oh, it's not true. What are your first reactions?
My first reaction was, God damn it.
What?
My wife is Mormon. How do I do this? I guess I'm just gonna have to fake it for the next 30, 40 years.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So I just faked it for a long time. Went to church.
No joke, he really did. And I'm still learning, how long he really didn't believe.
I mean, it was a long time.
Because for a while I thought it was 2 years after we got married. And then I was like, oh, 1 year after we got married.
No,
then it was like, oh, it was like right after.
It was pretty soon after we got married.
So did you think I was going to divorce you?
Oh, yeah.
You were like pretty sure?
Well, yeah, I mean, if I thought
well,
you
I
might.
did, so.
Yeah, but we're back together now. So.
Just kidding. We didn't. We'll get to that part of the story. Wow. So, did you have any kind of feelings of like regret or frustration or anything when you realized like, wait a second, I've spent my whole life doing this and Joseph Smith did that and...
Well, I mean, the mission thing is... It screws with your brain because I was like, man, that already felt like a waste of 2 years.
Right.
Now, it really feels like a waste. And feelings of regret, not really. The only time I remember anything like that was when I was at my friend's house and we were all having a good time and stuff. And I went to the bathroom and I like looked up in the mirror and I was like, I kind of like myself.
Aww.
And that was the first time I was ever able to say that. And I was like, oh, cool. And I felt really good. And I fixed a lot of problems. And then I got in my truck to go back home. And for some reason, when I got in that truck, like it all just hit me like, oh, there was never a reason to not feel this way.
Oh, there was never a reason to hate myself.
Yeah. And it was the only time in my life I've ever really been in like a blind rage. Like I looked like a maniac. I was like yelling and just smashing crap in my truck. I'm surprised I didn't break anything. I got really into it. And just that was the lump sum of my frustrations. And I was like, okay, I'm good.
But I mean, you spent like a year listening to podcasts like every day, so it didn't all just come out in like one smashing.
No, I didn't. I spent a long time stuck in sort of that liminal stage of
and it was also
ex-mormonism.
secretive too.
It was, yeah.
He was like really protective of his phone during this time because he was on the ex-mormon subreddit all the time. And I, like, at the time, I didn't know what was going on. And so I thought he was, like, into porn or cheating or something. I was like, why is he so protective of his phone?
I remember thinking about that one time. I was like, she probably thinks I'm watching porn. And I'm like, maybe I should just get, like, the ex-mormon subreddit up in one window and then, like, porn up in another window. And if you come up behind me, just hurry and switch. It's porn. It was just porn. I swear to God. Gosh.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so bringing me into the story up to that point was we got married, and I remember like being worried when we got married about your spiritual state because I was very, very devout. And I was also very like codependent. Like I wanted someone to like tell me what to do and like it was very, like, Mormon woman kind of thing. Like, I wanted someone to tell me what to do and what to think. And Jared didn't, like, he was not like that. He was not someone who would want to tell people what to do. So I would, like, get frustrated with him because I'd be like, do you think I should take this class or this class? And he'd be like, I don't know, which one do you want to take?
They were electives. It was bowling and archery. Archery's obviously the right answer, but if you like bowling, take that.
But I was, like, constantly worried about making the wrong decision, even to the extent that I was worried I'd pick the wrong elective. Like, I was that scared. Like, and so I
thought that one of those classes had somebody that God wanted you to help.
Yeah.
That's actually what you said to me.
Well, that was the whole thing is, like, if I make a wrong decision, it could, like, impact the rest of my life. Because what if I meet someone who's, like, struggling in the one class or whatever. So, like, I had, I don't know, like, it was, I don't want to say that, like, we don't run into people that we're meant to or whatever, but I was, because I like to believe in God. I like to think, like, some things are, like, meant to be or whatever. But at the same time, to the extent that I was worried about it at the time was super unhealthy. And I was constantly afraid of making the wrong decision. So, anyway, so I start worrying about him because he's not wanting to tell me what to do. And he also was not willing to sing sacrament hymns, which further concerned me.
I sang the ones I liked.
Well, that wasn't even a Mormon thing. Like, he just didn't like to sing hymns generally.
Well, it's some hymns. I'm serious. If it was something dumb, like... what's a dumb hymn? I can't think of the names of the dumb ones, because they're dumb, and I don't pay attention to them.
Fair enough.
But if it was something good, like If You Could Hide a Kolob, How Firm a Foundation.
I know, I know the hymns, yes.
Poor Wayfaring Man of Grief. I would sing those. I'd belt them.
Yes. But there was these little things that I was, like, getting concerned, and, like, he seemed like he was not wanting to pay tithing.
God, I wasn't.
And I was, like, getting really... I was getting worried, I remember. But at the same time, I was, like, hopefully, like, it'll work out. I was especially scared, too, because, like, my parents had just got divorced, and my dad left the church. So, like, there was all these fears around that for me of, like... because we're newly married, like, I don't know if this is gonna work out, and, like, I want it to, and I'm scared, and then, like, what if he leaves, and then we get divorced, like my parents did, so there was, like, a lot going on underneath it all. So then, I remember, it was pretty obvious that you were very depressed, and, like, having a really hard time with the church stuff, but I didn't know that's what was going on. I just knew he was really depressed and upset, and I was like, I don't know what to do with this, like, I don't know what's going on. So I kept pressing him for information, and finally I think you broke down one day, and you were like, because he would just be like, oh, it's nothing, and I'm like, well, then why are you being so sad? and you finally broke down one day, and do you remember what happened?
It wasn't even really a breakdown. You just wouldn't let it go.
Yeah, it was very, I say breakdown, but it was like,
you were just especially insistent that night. You're like, okay, you gotta tell me what's wrong. I'm just tired. And you're like, no, you gotta tell me what's wrong this time, okay? Don't brush it off. Tell me what's up. You probably thought I was gonna say, I cheated on you.
That's honestly what I was worried about. Because, again, we were still very newly married. Like, I thought there was something I was doing wrong or something serious was going on. Like, because I had never seen him be like that.
Yeah. And this church stuff was totally overshadowing the cheating. Like,
what?
I couldn't feel bad for having cheated on you because I was feeling so bad about the church stuff.
Oh my gosh. People are gonna think you're serious. As far as I know, he's joking, guys. Oh my god. What is wrong with you? Yeah, polygamy. I hate polygamy because I'm all about devotion. Asshole. Okay, anyway, so do you remember what you said that day? Or thereabouts?
All I said was, well, there's just, some stuff I found out that's troubling about church history. You were like, well, like what? I was like, oh, just, polygamy. I didn't really like polygamy that much. Joseph Smith married a 14-year-old.
You didn't say that night, did you? I don't remember. It was so long ago now.
Yeah, I can't remember. I might not have said that night.
You basically, he very sugarcoated it, right? He didn't go into all these details, all the things he found on Fair Mormon or anything like that. He didn't make me think that his shelf was broken or that it would be broken. Like, he basically was just like, well, I read some troubling stuff. And my thought was, whew, like, at first I was, like, relieved because I was like, oh, it's not about me. Like, he's not leaving me. He's not cheating on me. Like, I was very insecure at the time.
Everything's about you.
It is. It still is. So I just thought, oh, he read some troubling stuff. That really sucks. He's going to pray about it and feel better and move on. I'm pretty sure that's how I felt. And, like, I was worried about you possibly leaving, but I also was, like, I remember when we got married, didn't I like make you promise me that you'd never leave the church? I think I remember
you
something
said
to
that
effect.
after we were married.
I was really scared of that, guys.
You were bumming about your dad that day, and you're like, just promise me you're never going to leave the church. And I was like, shit. I guess I got to fake it for another 10 years.
Oh, thank you. I didn't want my garments to show. Guys, I honestly, like, this is, like, very tender stuff that I'm sharing. Because, like, I'm not proud of some of the things that I felt in my lifetime. But, like, I mean, we're all where we're at. Like, we can't help it. So, I appreciate your respect. And so, yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. There was so much content. I had to break it up into a couple videos. So, don't forget to check out part 2. That link will be here in the description below. Thank you guys so much. Comment down below any questions, and we will see you guys in the next video.